morning, everyone, and welcome back to Rita's Delicious Dishes. Today I've decided to make something very American, as in New England clam chowder, and I'm going to do it Rita's way. That's going to be very healthy without lots of cream and lots of butter. I've always believed that if you put a lot of cream and a lot of butter in anything, it's going to be delicious, but it is not necessary for it to really taste really good if you just add a couple of other things in place of those and keep them healthy and enjoy them just the same as you would if it was all butter and cream. So I'm going to start with one potato. I am a person who likes to have not too much potato in my New England clam chowder because I do like potato, but I'd much rather have more clams than potato. I add lots of onion and lots of celery because I enjoy those too, but I don't want tons and tons of potatoes. There's nothing that bothers me more than going out and having my a little cup of clam chowder and digging in and coming up with 5 potatoes and 1 piece of clam. I'd much rather not eat clam chowder out if that's how it's going to be. And I also don't like it so thick that the spoon stands up. I like more of a liquidy chowder, just a little bit of creaminess to it. So I'm going to start with 1 potato for the whole pot. And I chose a Yukon Gold potato. It's really a nice clean potato. I did scrub it really well. And I took off any of the little marks on there that I didn't like the looks of. And I'm going to dice it in small slices. I'm going to bring my pot over first, my little stock pot, and I'm going to add about a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, just so we can get the pot started with the potatoes, onions, and celery. So I'm going to put it over the heat, over very low, because we don't need it to be sizzling this time. And I'm going to chop the potato in small pieces. I don't like big pieces of potato either. If I'm going to have potato, I like them to be small and kind of the same size as a chopped clam. So I'm going to keep my eye on what I'm doing here so I don't cut myself. Beautiful. I love Yukon Gold potatoes because they have a yellow color to them, which to me just seems like they're a little richer in flavor to start with. And I especially love them if I'm going to make some kind of mashed potatoes, because they do taste a little more buttery to me. So it's a perfect potato to work with. But I've worked with russets and made clam chowder, and I've also worked with red potatoes. And I leave the skins on the potato because that's where most of your nutrition is. So you want to try and keep them on. Oh, there we go. But if you're going to use a russet, you should scrub it really clean because russets tend to be a very dirty looking potato. But if that's all you have and you want to make a chowder, doesn't mean you can't do it. You just have to clean it really well, or you can peel it if you want. Some people don't like to eat potato skins at all. Personally, I love the skin of a potato. Even a sweet potato, I love the skin of. So we're getting close to getting the potato all chopped. I like these little mats chopping mats that are flexible because you can pick them right up and put your goodies right in the pot. So I'm going to start with, the second thing I'm going to use is a nice sweet Vidalia onion. I got to throw all my little things I don't need in the bowl here, like a little rubbish bowl. Oh, the onion's already getting to my nose. I like to do this pretty quick so I don't end up tearing up. So I cut them in half. And then I just go right ahead and I slice into the onion, keeping it together. You don't slice all the way through, just almost all the way through, so you can keep it intact. And then I kind of just shave it a little bit. I don't want the onion too big either. It's going to get really soft and kind of melt into the chowder anyway. Once you get to the end, you can just chop right through that. You don't have to get too fussy. We'll get those in there. Get the other one done. Remember to use a good sharp knife when you're doing this because people hurt themselves more with dull knives than sharp knives. There we go. Get this part shaved and chopped up. Just a nice small dice. There. We're getting a good start to the chowder. Okay, next is our celery. I actually saved the celery for this show because I wanted to use the celery that was more towards the inner side of the whole bunch of celery because I'm looking for the leaves. And because the leaves have a beautiful flavor and a wonderful flavor to any soup or any chowder. I'm going to take off the little bad ends. They have a little brown to them. And we'll discard those. And I do use a good amount of celery because I love the flavor that it gives the chowder. So just chop through it, nice and small. There's not much dirt on the inner stalks of the celery. And I do keep it wrapped in foil. I learned a long time ago from a friend that if you wrap your celery in foil, it lasts way longer than if you leave it in the plastic sleeves that it comes in. And honest to God, I have had celery for 2 months in my fridge, and it was absolutely perfect. So just a little side thing for everyone. So I'm going to drop that in there. I know it looks like a lot, but it will melt right into the pot. There we go. And surprisingly enough, I'm going to add some lovely chicken broth. I know you're thinking chicken broth in a clam chowder. Well, clam juice, for one thing, I'm going to add it later, is a little pricey. It's about $2.29 a bottle. So I found that I can add chicken broth, chicken stock, and get a great flavor from that. Just to saute the vegetables is basically what I'm trying to use the chicken broth for. But I do have a little suggestion for all of you this morning about the kind of chicken broth you use. Now this may be okay for some of you and not okay for others because you need to have a BJ's card. I believe that's the only place you can buy it. But I found from a friend who owned a restaurant many years ago that all of their soups and gravies are made with this product. It's called Minor's Chicken Base. You can buy it online. It is made from the Nestle company, but it is a paste of chicken. And it makes the best flavored broth you have ever tasted, ever. So, but it has to be kept in the fridge once you open it, but it will stay in your pantry for a long time. Once it's open, it has to be refrigerated. So we got a nice little pot going here. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit so it gets started. Once it gets boiling, it's going to take about maybe 10-12 minutes for these to soften up. It's looking perfect. So let's get rid of this. So while the chowder's cooking, I thought to myself, what am I going to do all that time? Because it's going to be a little bit of a time. So I decided that I also wanted to introduce you to something that most people, I'd say not that they haven't heard of it before, but they certainly don't use it a lot. It is a green that is called escarole. Now people say, oh, I've had it in soups, because that's the only place people think it belongs. But growing up in a Greek household, we ate a lot of different greens. We ate dandelion greens from our own yard. I remember as a kid having to go out and pick up the dandelion greens so my mom could cook them for us. And they were so good. Even as a kid, I ate them. So this is what escarole looks like. Sometimes, now I actually pulled off some of the outer leaves. You'll find some of the outer leaves that have a little damage to them, so you just want to just pick them off. That's a pretty good one. So for the most part, this looks pretty good. There's one that's not so nice. They get little brown marks on them. You don't really want to deal with those. So the other thing I'm going to tell you about escarole is that it's a dirty green. It really is a dirty green. So it's going to need to be washed and really washed thoroughly. So I'm going to get my colander out of my salad spinner. And I also want you to know that the ends of the leaves, they get a little dried out, they get a little brown, and they're a little tough. So you're going to chop off, get it as tight as you can, and you're going to chop off that thick, rough part of the escarole, because that is hard to chew. And we don't really need that kind of leaf in our mouth. So I'm going to do just ribbons of them. Ooh, I can smell the onions and the celery. There we go. As you get to the center, it's going to get lighter, of course, like many lettuces. And once you get down to about there, you're good to go. Just throw the core away. So that's the base to the salad. I'm going to give it a really good wash, you guys, because it is very sandy and very dirty. And I use the sprayer on my stove because it seems to get into all those leaves and get all the dirt. It does spray me sometimes, but it's definitely worth it because we do have to get them perfectly clean before we can use them. I can see them getting nicer and nicer as I'm washing through them. And you got to do it for a little bit of a time because be patient with your escarole. It's going to be worth it. If you want to know what it tastes like, it's not bitter. People think, oh my goodness, is it bitter? First question I get. No. It has a tiny bit of bitterness to it, but not bitter where you'd say, oh my God, I could never eat that. But it's got a different texture. It's a little rougher than lettuce. I actually like it. I personally like to really chew my food, and I think that when I chew my food, I feel like I'm really eating, you know? So I'll bring this over here. And, oh yeah, the pot's going now. You probably can see the steam coming out. Oh goodness, it smells so good. Woohoo. I love chowder. So I'm gonna get these spun really dry. Remember, when you're spinning your greens and cleaning your greens, oh, I get my little break there. You've got to remember to, with the first spin, you want to discard the water, put the basket back in, and turn them upside down because the pieces that are on the bottom are still very wet. So that's why I always recommend that people give it a couple of spins so it gets nice and dry. There's nothing like a wet salad, wet in water. No, 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 no. We'll have none of that. Yeah. I love my little break on my XO salad spinner. I'm going to keep giving my little pot a stir because we're going to make sure we get good even heat all around. Oh yes, beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to make the dressing. And we're going to make it in a big bowl like this because we're going to toss the salad greens in this bowl. So it calls for cider vinegar, shallot, Dijon mustard, canola oil, and olive oil. So you will see the portions of each when you see the recipe in the end. I'm just going to do my thing because I've done this one before many times. We need some apple cider vinegar, about 3 tablespoons, a couple of tablespoons of canola oil, nope, I think it's 4 tablespoons of canola oil. I'm going to do 3 and 3 olive. I could probably eyeball this, but I'm thinking, I better pay attention this morning and make it just the way it's supposed to. There. Calls for a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Squirt that in there. And there is a shallot that goes in here. A shallot, if you don't have a shallot, a lot of people don't use shallots, but I love them because they're really like a mild red onion. But if you don't have one, you certainly can use a red onion. It'll work fine, just a little stronger. And they're kind of funny little onions. If you look at them, you can see that they're actually a red onion, but a baby. And they have a little sheath that you have to make sure you get that off before you start chopping. This has to be minced, so you want to get it really fine with your knife. So what I suggest is that you do it just like we did the onion, very tiny little slices, tiny. So it comes out as a mince. Or if you're too big, you could just mince them easily with your nice sharp knife. There we go. You just need a couple of tablespoons. That's plenty. We're going to whisk this together. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got a beautiful little texture to it. Nice pieces of shallot. And I am going to add a tiny bit of salt and pepper. Just a little. There. Sweet. Sweet, sweet. I love to make my own dressings. They're really easy. And they're way less expensive than buying bottle dressings. I do buy creamy dressings for my significant other that he loves. They are very pricey, but I cannot get into making creamy dressings, so I don't. Oh, look at this. Steaming away over here. Everything's beginning to soften up. Excuse me, we do need to have everything soft before we continue on. And remember that when you make clam chowder, you don't want to put the clams in and cook them forever because all they're going to do is get rubbery. So let me show you the clams that I chose to get today. They are fresh minced clams. You can get them at the market right near your seafood area. I buy them at Star Market. They are a little pricey, but you know what? It makes for really, really wonderful chowder. So I buy 2 of these because I want more clams than anything in my chowder. So this is the one. It's called Chef's Catch. So you can look for those. We still need to have this cook a little bit longer. I'm going to take the clams out of the fridge so they can warm up a bit. And I'm also going to remove the blue cheese that's going in the salad. So here are my clams, all chopped up. I want you to know that sometimes when you look through clams, people have said, oh my goodness, what's that pink in your chowder? What is that pink? And it's just that, or orange, or whatever they want to call these. It's like, it's part of the clam. Some clams are not all white. They have color to them. So it all comes mixed in. There's one. But fear not, everybody. Just eat them. They're delicious. Oh, it's coming along beautifully. Another minute or so. So while that's finishing up, I'll be heading right back to the chowder, and I'm going to mix the salad. Oh, here it is. Looking for my blue cheese. Okay, so I'm going to mix the salad, and then I'm going to plate some so we can all have a bite after the meal is done. I'm going to introduce escarole to my cameraman, which will be interesting. So I'm not going to put it all in here because I want to make sure I have the salad for this evening's dinner. So I'm going to put just enough to give us a little try. If I have to whip more dressing later, I will. Not a problem. There we go, just till it's coated. Oops. How did I forget the apples? Okay, so you need a sweet apple for this salad. This happens to be a Honeycrisp apple, or one of those sweet Fuji apple. I can't remember if it's a Honeycrisp or Fuji, but you want to leave the skin on, and you want to dice the apple, not too small, you know, nice little bite-sized pieces. Please leave the skin on, just so you know all your nutrients in an apple is found in the skin and just below the skin. I remember as a kid, my mother used to have me clean her apples for her, especially as she got older, and I later learned that all the nutrients were in the skin. So she actually threw all the nutrients away. But today, I always eat the skin of my apples because I know they're nutritious. It's very nutritious. And it's all about nutrition when you're cooking. That's what we should be thinking about. How am I doing with healthy eating and healthy cooking? That's all we need to be thinking about, because if you eat right, if you eat well, you're going to be well. It's one of my little tags that everybody knows me by. Okay, so there goes the apple. And, of course, we have chopped pecans, of which I toasted in a fry pan earlier. All you're going to do is throw them in a fry pan just dry. Don't put any oil in the pan. Turn it up really high and then drop the nuts in. Shake the pan, stay right there. Do not leave it because they will char very quickly. So once they're toasted, take them out and let them cool on a paper towel. So when you start your salad, you should probably toast your pecans first and set them aside so they're cool by the time you want to use them in your salad. So I'm going to just drop these in here and mix it around again. Things getting caught up in my whisk. And I need some tongs. We'll plate some salad, and then we're going to add the lovely blue cheese. Wonderful salad, just wonderful. And it tastes just as good as it looks, I guarantee it. There we go. And now we're going to put the crumbled blue cheese. You need to buy a really good blue cheese, like a Great Hill blue cheese, because if you buy inexpensive blue cheeses, it's just not quite the same. So you want to crumble it up. And remember, blue cheese is a little pasty. If you're not a blue cheese lover and you like goat cheese, you could probably substitute it for that, or you could substitute feta. You also could substitute the apples for strawberries, as long as there's some kind of grapes. I've done it with red grapes, which I actually love as well as this one. So the salad is finished. Came out quite beautiful. Just a little salt and pepper. We'll add to that a little bit later. Right now, though, this chowder looks like it's coming along. I gotta get my hands clean. Oh yeah, smells wonderful, just wonderful. Okay, so the clams go in last, everyone. So I'm going to now add the clam juice. This was strained from the chopped clams, the minced clams. I strained out the broth because we're going to use it. So I'm going to pour that in so we don't waste it. Then I'm going to always shake your clam juice, because sometimes you'll see there's a little residue on the bottom. You want to utilize that. We'll dump that in there, as well as a second bottle. This is what gives it all the flavor. Yeah, so we'll bring that to a bit of a boil. You always want to give your pot a good stir because you're making a, oh, goodness, the clam juice smells wonderful. I feel bad for people who don't have, who can't eat shellfish because they're missing out on so much wonderful, wonderful seafood. Okay, so now I have, this is the trick, no cream. I use evaporated milk. I use 1 can of 2% and I use 1 can of fat-free, which brings it to 1%. They don't make a 1% evaporated milk, so I make my own with my little, I put my little thinking cap on and, oh God, I have the hardest time with this little tool. There we go. I don't use it very often anymore except for this. So I'm going to put this right in here. 1, 2. This adds so much richness to this chowder. It's just amazing. I just kind of concocted this one day because I really, really, really wanted to make my own clam chowder. And I wanted to make it healthy because I know that most clam chowders, when you get them out in restaurants, are not very healthy for you, but I do love the flavor of them. But I thought to myself, you know what? I can do this. I know I can. So I sat down one day and thought, how am I going to make it? Came up with the idea, and it seemed to come out just beautifully. So I'm going to add a couple more seasonings in here. I know one of them is going to be very surprising to you. I do add a little bit of Old Bay. This isn't the surprise. Old Bay is a seafood seasoning, and I add a little bit to my clam chowder because I think it gives it a wonderful, wonderful boost in flavor. It does change it a little bit, makes it a little lightly pink, but it's almost not noticeable. By the time we're done, you won't even see it. I do add a bit of thyme. I want you to be really careful with thyme leaves. Thyme leaves can be really strong if they're overdone. I have had chowders out that all I could taste was thyme. In the chowder, all I could taste was thyme and bacon. I don't put any bacon in my chowder. I don't put anything, pork, no, nothing. You know, if I'm having a clam chowder, I want to have a clam chowder. I don't want to taste all bacon. I don't want to taste all thyme. So I'm going to put it in my hand first to assure that I don't overdo it. And once I have it in my hand, it's like probably a teaspoon. And because it's dried, all of your dried herbs should be crushed up a little bit just to break them open and really explode their flavor. I actually have a little too much here, and I'm glad I put it in my hand. I'll discard some. I can just kind of tell by doing this so often how much I need and not to overdo. So just kind of rub it together. Good. Awesome. Oh, I do love the smell of it, but I don't like it to overpower my clam chowder. And the last thing I'm putting in here is a really, you know me and my ground fennel. My cousin's husband makes seafood chowder, and she told me one day that he puts ground fennel in his chowders. And I thought, really? And I would have never guessed to do that myself. So I put it in a few times ago when I made my chowder, and I thought it was absolutely delicious. So I'm going to drop some in here, probably like a tablespoon. Add some seriously good flavor. It's amazing. This ground fennel is just a wonderful, wonderful thing to have on hand. Okay, so it's smelling delicious. Oh, so good. I'm going to have a little taste. Oh, just perfect. Truly. One more. Oh, so good. And the cup, they haven't even all come together yet, but it's wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to bring this to a little bit of a boil. And I have my flour all ready to thicken this. I'm going to put the clams in at the very last because I don't want them to overcook. So I'm going to add some water to my flour, just enough to make it like a little syrupy paste. Sometimes I add too much flour, and if I do, I have to go back in and add some kind of liquid because if it's too thick, I don't enjoy my clam chowder that way. So let's get this all broken down and kind of creamy as this is heating up. You want your base to be fairly hot before you put your thickener in. Remember that because otherwise it's not going to come together properly. You can kind of see the consistency of this. It's kind of thick, but yet creamy. Still a little lumpy though. I can feel the lumps. So just keep working it around till it gets nice and smooth. Give this another stir. It's very loose and milky, of course, with the broth and the evaporated milks. I do add, sometimes I add a little bit of regular 1% milk as well. I've thrown it in there occasionally, and I somehow feel like it does some good to it. About a cup, maybe a half cup, 3/4 of a cup, whatever you feel like putting in. You don't have to be so specific with the chowder. The thyme comes out so much. It's like its aroma is distinct and delicious smelling. All right, so she's starting to get steamy. Make sure we get this nice and smooth. Oh yes. Just keep whisking it and whisking it till you get no lumps. We don't want any lumps in our chowder by any means. Okay, here we go. We're almost there, everybody. It's almost done. It's amazing how fast the chowder can come together. And by the way, I want to tell everyone that you got to go very slow. I'm pouring it, just streaming it in there. I want you all to know that you can use this base that I'm using right now before I throw the clams in. You can make this base and use it for shrimp chowder. You can use it for scallop chowder. You can use it for fish chowder. So there are 4 chowders that you can make from what we're making today. 4 different ones, and I have made them and brought them to my family for events, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that you made this. It's absolutely delicious. So this is coming together beautifully, just the right consistency. It might thicken up a little more, which is okay. Let me get it all out of there. As you push the spoon through it, you can feel it's getting creamy and thicker, just what you're looking for with the flour and the water mix. I'm going out to lunch. I wish I was staying home for lunch. It smells so good. But I'll have some tonight with dinner. I never have chowder as dinner. I always have it as in a little ramekin, as a little appetizer before dinner. So I don't spoil my dinner, but I do. I never have it as a dinner. I don't know why. Neither does my significant other. We just always have it as something before our lunches or dinners. So I'm going to let that go a little bit longer before I put the clams in. I'm going to get us a nice little bowl. Set it right next to the salad. Oh goodness, the salad looks so good. I'm going to give the salad a little salt and pepper. Just a tiny bit of salt. It doesn't need a lot. There we go. I'm going to give my chowder a little taste. See if it needs anything else before I drop the clams in. Everything is soft and done. I press the potato up against the side of the pan to make sure it's where I need it to be. Keep your heat at medium right now so it stays nice and hot, so the chowder thickens. It's coming along beautifully. I wish I had a camera on my shoulder so you could see in this pot, but we'll get a shot of it after it's all done. Give it a little taste. Oh, so good. It's just about ready. I need one more ingredient. And that is, I told you there's not a lot of cream and butter. I didn't say there's no butter. We are going to put 1 little tablespoon of butter in here. You can put it in now or you can put it in the end. Doesn't matter. Just get it all melted. I'm so happy to be making this, and I'm sure my other half is going to be happier when he gets home. He loves clam chowder. He loves all chowders. So do I, actually. I think clam is my favorite, but I do enjoy all the rest of them. I did enjoy the shrimp, though. I'm a big shrimp lover. He is not, so we usually stick to clam chowder. Okay, so it's perfectly thick. So now I'm going to gently drop these in here so I don't splash myself. I know it looks like a lot of clams because it is, but that's how I like my chowder, with lots and lots of clams. I hate to say this, but it's a bit of perfection. Just delicious. Oh, my goodness gracious. Me oh my oh mama. I wish my mom was alive. She'd be so proud of me. She'd be like telling me to make her things and bring her things every day. But my family does enjoy them, and I enjoy cooking for them, and I enjoy cooking for my significant other. Every night we have dinner at home for the most part. Once in a while we go out because we should, but I love to cook, and we love to be at home. So this is all done. I'm just going to shut it off. The clams will continue cooking. I am going to put a lid on it just for a couple of minutes. You're going to use it as a shrimp chowder or a scallop chowder or a fish chowder. The fish you're going to cut in chunks. If you have large scallops, cut them in half. If you have small scallops, leave them alone. If you have a good sized shrimp, you can cut that in half if you like and throw them in there. Or you can throw them, if you're using small shrimp, I prefer shrimp that are like, I think it's 21 to 25 count. So they're a good size, and I cut them in half. Because when I eat my chowder, I like to taste the bits of the seafood. So if I cut them too small, then they get lost in the chowder. So I just make sure that I keep them a good size. So it doesn't take but a couple of minutes for this to finish off in the pot, because you do not want to overcook your clams. They will become pure rubber. It's like not good. So I think that you'll find yourself just dropping them in there, giving them a couple of minutes, and let me clean up a little bit so I can put our chowder in a bowl and put a little pepper on top. No salt in the chowder, everyone, because the broth, chicken broth, is a salty base, so you want to watch your salt, because it can get too salty, and once it's too salty, you have to go in and do a lot of repair work, which you shouldn't have to do. So let me get a little ladle. Oh, so rich and so creamy and so full of clams. Lots of celery, just a little potato. Oh, just the perfect combination. We're waiting for the smell-o-vision, but boy, when it happens, you're all going to be like blown away at how everything smells so delicious. Oh, lots and lots of clams. There you go. I need just a tiny bit of pepper. And there you have it, a wonderful escarole salad and a wonderful New England clam chowder done Rita's healthy way. Enjoy, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.